That morning, Elena was clearing the table after having breakfast with her 8-year-old son, David, when she saw him get up and go to the bathroom. The problem was that Elena had noticed that when her son went to the bathroom, he only stayed there for a few seconds. At most a minute. Moreover, she only heard him urinate. But she hadn't heard him poop in weeks. One time, Elena entered the bathroom immediately after her son had left. It was then that she could confirm that the toilet paper was untouched. There were no odors or any signs that David had pooped. Elena's heart froze. Weeks had passed. How was it possible that she hadn't realized it? Thoughts began to flood her mind, each more alarming than the last. Could it be simple constipation? She thought, trying to be optimistic. But something in her mother's intuition told her that this was much more serious. "Let's go to the bathroom. I'm going to check you," she said, trying to keep the calm in her voice. When they arrived, Elena asked David to lower his pants so she could examine him. What she saw next left her completely frozen. Speechless. Unable to comprehend the strange and terrifying reality she had just discovered. Her son's bottom looked untouched. Clean. As if it hadn't been used in months. When Elena asked her son when the last time he pooped was, he responded that he didn't remember. "How can you not remember, David?" she asked in a tone full of concern. "No, Mom. I don't remember. Although I don't feel any discomfort," he said with a voice full of innocence. Elena was very worried about her only son. After that first discovery of what was happening, she spent several days supervising his visits to the bathroom. Each time, the little one only urinated. By then, the situation was sounding alarms in her mind. She began to think daily about his diet. "I give him fruit juices and nutritional supplements for his development. Smoothies. And he seems to be in good health. It can't be healthy for him to go weeks without pooping. Something must be happening to my little boy." Elena's thoughts were a bit chaotic due to the situation. Since she had her little angel, she had promised to protect him with her life. However, 2 years ago, she had become a widow. David's father had passed away from natural causes. So she needed to be very attentive to her little boy's health. She had promised this to her first husband. Immediately after being left alone with David, Elena began to work to take care of the boy, who was only 6 years old when he lost his father. A year later, she met Caesar, her current husband. While at work, Caesar and David did not have the best relationship. They were cordial with each other, though every time they were together, in the dining room at mealtime, there was tension between the little one and the adult. Elena was aware that Caesar didn't like the child, and David didn't have much affection for him either. "Caesar, you need to have a more fatherly relationship with David. You treat him as if he's already grown up. But he's only 8 years old," Elena would say whenever she felt the tension between the two people she cared about so much. That morning, Caesar noticed the worried look on his wife's face and asked, "Now, what did David do to have you looking like that?" He looked at her with a bit of displeasure on his face. "Please, Caesar, don't make that face. I'm worried about the little one. I've been observing him for several days, and he only goes to the bathroom to urinate. Something must be wrong with him," she said with a tone of sadness in her voice. There's nothing wrong with him. Don't you see that he's in good health, he replied. First of all, he's my son. The truth is, I don't know. Today, I won't go to work. I'll take him to the doctor to find out what's wrong with him, she said as she looked at her schedule to find the number of the pediatrician's office. After calling the office, Elena called out to her little one to change his clothes since they were going out. When they arrived at the doctor's office, Dr. Samuel was already waiting for them. So they immediately went into the doctor's room to have David examined. Dr. Samuel, I've been observing my little one's bathroom routine for several weeks now. He only urinates but doesn't poop. And it's been many days like this. That can't be healthy, she said, worried about her son. The doctor performed a thorough examination on the child, feeling his abdomen carefully. What he felt was a soft area. So he determined that there was no obstruction in the intestines. He continued with the physical examination, in which he detected no problems with the child. To be honest, Elena, I don't see any problems with the little one. So there's no need to prescribe anything. Just continue with a good diet. And at some point, he'll use the bathroom normally. It must be a phase the child is going through, he said to reassure the worried mother. The days continued to pass, and Elena kept observing that her little one still wasn't pooping. He only went to the bathroom to urinate, even though she kept giving him a lot of fiber in his daily diet. The child remained constipated. I have to seek a second professional opinion. This definitely isn't normal for him to continue like this, she thought as she began searching for a specialist who could examine her little one more thoroughly. When the day arrived, mother and son went to another doctor's office. When they arrived, they entered the doctor's office, and she explained to the new doctor the reason for their visit. I'm very worried. My little one hasn't pooped for several weeks. A previous doctor told me he didn't find any health problems. But I insist that this can't be normal, the worried mother commented. The new specialist they consulted ordered some radiological exams. Let's see what's going on. I'll order several tests. An ultrasound, an echography, and an MRI to see in depth if my colleague overlooked any details. It happens sometimes, the doctor said in a serious tone. Elena immediately took action, bringing her little one to get all the tests the specialist ordered. Once she had all the results, she brought him back to the doctor's office. The doctor, after reviewing the radiological studies, also found no problems in the child's digestive or abdominal tract. Mrs. Elena, this is very strange. The little one shows no anomalies that could cause his lack of bowel movements. The only thing I can prescribe is a diet rich in fiber and nutrients. Doctor, can you explain what the tests show? Elena asked. Certainly. The studies indicate that the child's intestines are clean. They're empty, as you can see here, the doctor said, pointing to the study on a lighted screen. He continued explaining. Sooner or later, David will start pooping again. Unless he's already doing it and you haven't noticed. His digestive system is healthy and in very good condition. When a human being consumes solid food, sooner or later, they have to poop. The doctor calmly continued explaining to the worried mother that if the child had a problem in his digestive system, He would feel significant discomfort. And the radiological exams would show the presence of stool. Despite the thorough explanation, Elena felt very frustrated. She had already seen 2 specialists, but neither of them had provided a viable explanation for her little one's situation, who hadn't pooped for about 2 months. She continued to observe closely what he did inside. And he only went into the bathroom to urinate. Nothing more. As each day passed, her mind filled with more and more doubts. How is it possible that her son is eating solid food and not pooping for several weeks? Why does he only urinate? These were the questions that continually ran through her mind. The little one was in good health, full of boundless energy. He had a well-defined daily routine, completing each task without showing any signs of discomfort. This deeply worried his mother, as the fact that he wasn't pooping regularly made her heart uneasy. She felt that her little one wasn't as well as the doctors had said. She shared this concern with her husband, Caesar. I'm very uneasy that none of the specialists can tell me what's wrong with our little one. Caesar. This isn't normal, she said, tears welling up in her eyes. As expected, Caesar didn't share her concern about little David. You're worrying more than you should. David isn't in any discomfort. It's all in your head. You need to leave him alone. And as one of the doctors said, let nature take its course. You've just spent a lot of money for nothing, he said, slightly irritated by the situation. Is money all you care about? Not the health of our little one? Well, I'm the mother. And I'm the one who should be concerned about his health. What he does and what he doesn't do, she replied, turning her back, upset by her husband's response. Days continued to pass. And after 3 months of closely monitoring her little one's bathroom routine, Elena was desperate. Despite not looking bloated or showing any discomfort, it wasn't normal for her that her son wasn't pooping regularly, even though he seemed healthy. Lacking her husband's support, she talked to some friends and shared her concerns. Friend. Take him to a healer. If science doesn't have the answer, there are other options that might help, they advised. You're right. I'll take him. Elena, convinced, thought that she had to find a cure for what her little one was experiencing. She finds the address of the local healer to take David. When the healer sees little David, she tells Elena what's wrong. This little one has been cursed by the evil eye due to envy. Children are the weakest link, which is why they're the first to feel the effects of the malignant, says Donna in a grave voice. What can I do to rid my child of this curse, so that he heals and returns to his normal daily routine? The healer begins preparing a series of brews with herbs entirely unfamiliar to Elena. Donna assures her that with these waters, he will be cured of the evil eye and will return to normal. Give him a glass of this brew every morning before breakfast, and you'll see that he'll soon start having normal bowel movements again, she says enigmatically. Elena remembers the healer's words, who told her to give the herbs with a lot of faith for their healing power to take effect. So she begins the spiritual treatment immediately. However, nothing takes effect. Days and weeks go by, and the little boy still hasn't had a bowel movement. By this time, the little one has gone about 4 months without using the toilet. On the verge of an anxiety attack, Elena calls her mother, who lives in another city, to tell her about her worries regarding her son. Mom. I don't know what to do. I'm so worried. David still hasn't gone to the bathroom. He only pees. But every time he goes in, I check. And he hasn't had a bowel movement. I've taken him to 2 specialists and a healer. And nothing works. She says hysterically, crying on the phone. The first thing you need to do is calm down. Her mother says in a soft voice full of wisdom to soothe her daughter. She continues. Little David must be having bowel movements. But he probably doesn't remember that he did. He might be going at night. And you're not supervising him after bedtime. These words from her mother get Elena thinking. It's true. The little one might be half asleep when he goes to the bathroom. So he forgets that he actually went. So she goes to a tech store to buy a small surveillance camera. The bathroom of little David in a hidden manner. Intending to check what he does at night after they go to sleep. The next day, she reviews the camera to see what her son does at night. Whether he enters the bathroom. And what he does inside. However, what the images reveal is not what she expected. She sees her little boy entering the bathroom. But he only urinates. Then brushes his teeth. Out of desperation, Elena begins placing cameras in various rooms of the house. Thinking that maybe the little one is having bowel movements in another part of the house. She needs to discover what's going on with her son. It was a great mystery that he was eating solid foods full of fiber. Yet only went to the bathroom to urinate. For several days. Elena checks the cameras to monitor her son's behavior under the irritated supervision of her husband, Caesar, who continuously tells her that David doesn't have any problem and that it's all in her imagination. The days keep passing. Elena marks an X on the calendar to show that she has been supervising her little one for 5 months. The boy continues not to have bowel movements in the bathroom. The mother keeps checking the cameras daily to see what her son does when he comes home. His routine. And dynamics. It's incredible and a complete mystery why her son hasn't had a bowel movement in so many weeks. What makes the situation worse is her husband's attitude. Who is somewhat annoyed by the attention she's giving to David. Who, in his view, is perfectly healthy. One day, while reviewing the cameras facing the back of the house, Elena sees her little one standing in a specific spot with his back to the house, making some strange movements. Afterward, he gets up and goes back inside as if nothing had happened. This behavior piqued Elena's curiosity. But she didn't pay it much attention. The next day, she observes how the little one returns to the same spot as the previous day. Does the same movements. And then returns to the house as if nothing unusual had occurred. After reviewing the recordings for several days, she notices that he does it once a day. In the same place. So filled with curiosity, she goes to the spot where she discovers a chilling truth. Little David wasn't having bowel movements because every day he was going to the back of the house to vomit his food. At least the mystery of why he wasn't having daily bowel movements is now solved. But Elena still doesn't understand why he's doing it. She becomes more worried than she already was. Elena starts to realize that the doctors didn't find any anomalies because the nutritional supplements she prepared for him daily kept him healthy. Which is why all his physical and radiological exams came back normal. After observing this behavior, she desperately calls a psychologist to understand why David is doing this. I need you to help me understand what's happening to David. He was such a cheerful little boy with good behavior. So why is he doing this? She explains to the psychologist in private. Let me talk to him alone to find out the reason. There could be many. But only David has the answer, says the specialist. At that moment, David confides in the psychologist that ever since his mother remarried, she had pushed him aside. The little one didn't like Caesar at all. He didn't treat him well and was always scolding him. Since Caesar had come into their lives, David felt he had lost his mother's love. So he started vomiting to avoid having bowel movements. He realized that by doing so, his mother's attention returned to him. The specialist explained to Elena what was happening and the reasons behind David's daily vomiting. Upon learning the truth, Elena begins to cry, reflecting on how she had behaved at the beginning of her relationship with her second husband. She steps out of the psychologist's office to find her son. And upon seeing him, she says, "My little one. You are and always will be my most precious treasure. I will always be by your side when you need me. You shouldn't have felt that way just because I married Caesar. The truth is, I didn't consider your behavior or your opinion. But that won't happen again. Please stop doing what you're doing. Don't make yourself vomit anymore. And return to normal. It's not healthy. You know that," she says, hugging him. The little boy feels exposed but is comforted by his mother's loving words. So he responds, "Yes, Mom. I won't do it again. I promise." A few days later, Elena separates from Caesar, with whom she had been having issues ever since she began worrying about her son. Caesar never paid any attention to what was happening with the boy, which deeply disappointed her. "I should have realized that you didn't truly care about my son, Caesar. Did you think that if I had to choose, I would choose you? My son is the most important thing I have in life. Of course, I choose him. He's still a defenseless little one who needs me." Just as he had entered their lives, Caesar left, never to be seen again by Elena and David. The little boy, seeing his mother's unconditional support, stopped vomiting and returned to normal. When he went to the bathroom, he urinated and had bowel movements as usual. Elena would occasionally supervise his trips to the bathroom in case the behavior ever returned. Shortly afterward, Elena met another man with whom she instantly connected. Little David and the man loved each other like father and son. So they accepted each other mutually. Elena married this man after seeing his behavior with David. And after that, they became a very happy family once again. The house was filled with laughter and free from worries for Elena. After watching the first story above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Now, let's watch another similar story.
Susan was taken aback when she first saw the strange holes in her baby's nose. She had no idea how harmful they could be, or what could have caused them. That same day, she went to the doctor, but the news she was given was anything but comforting. Susan, a 40-year-old single mother, had previously been in romantic relationships, but they had never been successful. She hoped things would go differently this time, given that it would be their first time meeting in person. She had spent a great deal of time getting ready for the date. Regretfully, things did not turn out as expected. She realized it was a long shot. Having met the man online, he didn't appear really interested in her or her baby, Roy, who Susan had from a previous relationship. During the somewhat routine evening, it was unclear to her if she wanted to see him once again. After the date, Susan saw something different in Roy. The baby, he scratched at his nose, as though he were uncomfortable. She was astonished to notice tiny holes inside his nose. Upon closer examination, she initially believed that something might have become lodged there, but it turned out that the holes were actually cutting into his skin. She applied a light pressure, and Roy started to weep, obviously in pain. Susan didn't know what she was dealing with, but she was very worried. She called the doctor after realizing how bad the issue was, and he scheduled a semi-emergency visit for that afternoon. They told her that before the end of the day, they would most likely meet Roy even though there would be others before him. Susan's doctor suggested that she consider any recent changes or out-of-the-ordinary things that may have led to the issue. The doctor would find this information very helpful in diagnosing the problem. Susan said she would give it some thought and hung up. What might have been the root of this issue, she wasn't sure. Susan looked back over the previous week and saw that she and Roy had not done anything unusual. They'd gone trekking in the forest a few days prior, and Roy might have came into contact with some kind of tainted moss or mushroom. Finding anything out of the ordinary in their routine was difficult. Susan had a modest lifestyle, going on sporadic treks and stopping by the neighborhood coffee shop. She lived what she thought was a monotonous life, working from home and rarely going outside. It dawned on her then that something had been strange. She had been corresponding online with a man, with whom she had gone on a date the previous evening. Susan was eager to go on a date again and was hoping it would go well, but she realized something was wrong right away. The man didn't seem to care about her or her child. In fact, it seemed like he was mad at her for being a single mother, but just when she was beginning to mistrust him, he would act in a way that seemed thoughtful. This was a strange date, and Susan didn't understand why he had contacted her at all. Looking back at their chats, she saw that he wasn't really into her and that she had been a little too frantic and hadn't acted rationally. Susan was unable to understand how he was related to Roy's illness. They hadn't interacted physically, and neither she nor him had messaged her since last night. Would he not have addressed it if he had done something? Susan was unsure. But she had to go because Roy's appointment was coming up. Roy was drawing a lot of attention in the doctor's office waiting area. Everyone in the vicinity was astounded to see the obvious holes on his nose. It wasn't until people started acting more and more curious that Susan realized how much attention others were paying. He was taken aback as he studied Roy's nose in great detail after they reached the doctor's office. Such a situation would undoubtedly stick out in his memory because he had never encountered something comparable. Honestly, he was really confused because he hadn't ever seen something comparable in his medical texts. While waiting for Susan's test results, the doctor kept his sharp focus on Roy's nose. Surprisingly, Roy appeared peaceful now that his nose was totally numb, even though he had been crying earlier. Susan, in need of a break, slipped away to the restroom, putting Roy to sleep. The doctor got a private message from a medical forum while she was away. As he eagerly opened the message, a mix of relief and horror washed over him as he discovered vital information. Without immediate intervention, this situation could worsen for all parties involved, including Susan, as another doctor has indeed seen it previously. Nearly instantaneously following the reading of the forum message, the doctor examined the test findings upon their arrival. The results were disturbing and corroborated the other doctor's opinion. After Susan's doctor departed from his office, the entire establishment descended into anarchy. The worsening condition of Roy's nose, with the holes expanding, was a source of anxiety for Susan upon her return from the restroom. When she discovered that someone had locked the door from the outside, she became increasingly anxious because she and her baby were trapped inside. The doctor's announcement to others that he had contacted the authorities only served to heighten her anxiety. She questioned what was going on with Roy and whether he was in immediate danger. Even though she was terrified and desperate, Susan tried to keep her cool, but she was having a hard time. She finally succeeded in breaking the door lock and swinging it open after a series of powerful kicks. Screams erupted from the opposing group as Susan's doctor retreated. Susan, who was panting severely from the exertion, was adamant on finding out what was going on and getting answers. As the situation escalated, the doctor urged Susan to remain where she was and told everyone else to back off. No one should approach Susan just now, she was informed. The doctor's expression of dread told her how serious the issue was for her and her unborn child's health. Susan was adamant that she would not budge until she got an explanation. She was determined to acquire answers. 3 armed officers burst into the building and noticed Susan before her doctor could react. A doctor yelled out, "It's them," as he pointed towards her. The policemen pulled their weapons and pointed them at Susan, who was dizzy and confused. She clapped her fists and begged for an explanation as tears welled up in her eyes. When the police officers saw how many holes Roy's nose had, they told her to keep her distance. A composed officer assured Susan that they will clarify everything, but that she and her infant must be quarantined without delay. Susan's physician expressed regret for not alerting her sooner. He acknowledged that he was scared. He had never come across someone with a serious flesh-eating illness before, and he had to follow strange protocols. He was feeling quite bad about the whole thing. He clarified that although a date and a hike were among Susan's recent activities, the date was found to be unrelated. Roy had most likely come into contact with an infected plant while hiking instead. Roy was going to need to spend some time in isolation, but thankfully the hospital had the prescription medication, because they needed to ask Susan about her hike. The police had stepped in. The doctor's alarm caused them to panic when they saw her outside the closed chamber. After conducting a comprehensive investigation and swiftly securing the route, the authorities soon discovered the non-native plant causing the infection. The plant was pulled up and thrown away. There had been no more cases since, and Susan was back to dating again after a month of her full recovery. After watching the stories above, do you have any thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comment section. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share our channel. That's all about today's stories. See you next time.